Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Abshire with Abshire PR, and we are very honored to be one of the sponsors today as part of the Southeast Georgia Leadership Forum. I really want to thank Morris Multimedia and all the other sponsors who helped make this really the start of, I hope, a great legacy program for our region happen. It's really been a great 2 days. As local leaders, we all know we lead by virtue of the willingness of others to place their trust and faith in us. No small task. Every time we have an opportunity to lead, it's an honor. It's actually a privilege. Today, we're lucky to have with us someone that many of you may know locally, Ivy Council, and she's going to be speaking to us about the privilege of leading. Ivy has an amazing background. You'll see it in the program. She's worked decades in human resources and from companies such as Baja Fresh Restaurants, which is a division of Wendy's, Ross Stores, and now Citi Trends. It's always something special when we have a leader who is also local but can give us global perspective and the human touch. And ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce now Ivy Council.
Thank you, Jen, for that warm welcome. I'm delighted to be here today to discuss the privilege of leading and how purpose and people and productivity, when integrated properly, accelerate the performance or optimize the performance of an organization. As we explore the privilege of leading today, one great outcome for me in this presentation would be if you took away one or two insights back to the workplace that you think can improve the capability of others. And hopefully, if it inspires you that much, you'll use it and you'll teach it to 10 other people. Leadership is a privilege. Privilege here means not entitlement, but it means a place of honor, a special place of honor. For our purposes, it's about how we serve the people that we lead. And to do it well and to embrace the privilege of leading, you have to have a profound sense of responsibility for people. So for me, it's evolving. I've learned it. I started, unlike Jen said, I think, many decades ago. So let's take a decade or two off. But I started, she said decades. I was like, no, not that many. So let's take a couple, I started a while ago, let's say a while back. And when I learned about management, I didn't learn about leadership, right? I learned about management. And it was all about how do you direct and control and create timelines and delegate and give assignments to people. And that's really what it is that you really need to do. Well, things have changed. Times have changed. Even the evolution of leadership has changed. The responsibility of leading extends beyond work. And therein lies the challenge. But before we get into, and there's a model for it, right? There's a model that's been created by Simon Sinek, you've seen him in his TED Talks, by Bob Chapman, who runs a great manufacturing organization in Wisconsin. There's Ram Shriram. A lot of people have talked about this issue of leading and what it really means in today's world. But let's talk about the pressure first that's being placed on leadership, particularly over the last 24 months and what's happened and why it is so much more important now to have this profound sense of responsibility for people and to have a responsibility that extends beyond work. Right. We all would probably agree that we're living in the most turbulent times in which to lead other people. And two key events contribute significantly to that. That's responsible for this acceleration and this transformation of what is expected of leaders. One was COVID, right? We shut down the country. The other was civil unrest. So people weren't unhappy about the state of circumstances, about diversity, about equity, about inclusion, about how people were treated, and is it fair and balanced here in America, and are we living up to our commitments to our citizens? And you overlay that with a pandemic where you shut down the economy, and the aftermath of that is that people are expecting much more than ever before from the people that choose to lead. So not manage, but that actually choose to lead. So there's this sense of social responsibility we want leaders to have. Wellness ought to be a concern of leaders. Work-life balance, economic security, technology. Think about it. Technology just has overtaken our lives in so many ways. We're captured by it. Don't think we've captured it, it's captured us. I can text you, I can Zoom you, I can DocuSign you, I can tweet you, I can Instagram you, and I can Snapchat you. So you're gonna talk to me. Right? You have somewhere along the line, you're gonna talk to me, right? So we're just consumed in 24-hour media. There is no place to rest. There's no place to rest. So when that shut down, a little bit of a time out for people, and people start thinking about life and thinking about who's responsible. Who's responsible and where does the responsibility lie? The employee brought the responsibility to the workplace. That's what happened. Right? They brought it to the workplace. Economic security, we found out what it really, truly means when you shut down an economy and you have people who live from paycheck to paycheck. We found out what that really, really means, and the brutal honesty of that is just staggering. Emotional and mental health. I know I'm crazy to y'all. Y'all know y'all crazy? I know I'm crazy. So I know, but here's what we found out. What we found out is that in this country, we don't, and now I'm quoting a millennial. His name is Jonathan Council Wordlaw, and if he says this to me one more time, I'm gonna shoot my son. He says, Mom, we just don't do enough and we don't contribute enough to mental health in this country. And COVID-19 clearly illustrated that, And now, but the good part about it, right, if there's any benefit from a pandemic, is that in regard to mental health and wellness, we can talk about it out loud now, right? I could tell a whole room full of people I'm crazy, and it's okay, right? It is absolutely okay to do so. So at least we're having the dialogue, at least we're talking about it. And then there's family, right? Remember when all of family used to live in the same town or the same community? Right, generations, cousins, aunts, uncles. We had something called the Industrial Revolution, and we built these big cities, and people started moving away from their homes in small towns or wherever they were, and they started congregating in these large cities, and families got dispersed, and you started migrating in other places for jobs. The jobs were in New York and Silicon Valley, wherever they were, Austin, now Denver subsequently. And so families, generational living was dispersed, not anymore, right? People started moving out of New York and they're going, I'm going back to Wisconsin where I came from, where I know somebody, right? And the note to somebody is the grandparents for my children. So my children now can see their grandparents, not because they got on a plane at Thanksgiving or Christmas, but they come by every week and they pick them up. And when they get tired of them, they give them back to you. right? So grandparents are happy. It's great, right? It's wonderful. But things change. These changes are brought into the work environment. And the employee says, I'm bringing all this into the work environment. And what did we say? When I learned management, what we said is if you have problems, you need to keep your problems at home. Don't bring them here, right? Do not bring those problems to work. Isn't that what we told people? Your business at home is your business. Not anymore. Not anymore. As leaders, it's our business now. Right? And the employee has made it our business. And they're saying, I want a better experience at work. That goes way beyond tasks. It's going, what does that mean? So the crude awakening for me a few years ago, I had a millennial come into my office. She sat down. She said, Ivy, I have some concerns about the way the department is being run. Now, you know who department this was, right? It was my department, right? And all of a sudden, I turned into my grandmother from Camden, South Carolina, and I said, a cartoon bubble. I said, little girl, you better get up out of here. I said, little girl, no, little girl. So just for a moment, I turned into my grandmother. And then I started thinking as I'm listening to this person, this is a whole different employee. This is a whole different employee. This is an empowered employee. The last 2 years has made this employee more empowered. If you think about it from a real estate perspective, for the real estate people, it is an employee's market. They're picking and choosing. I can't say to her anymore, that little girl, because I've got to prove myself to that little girl in order to retain her, in order to gain her loyalty for the company, right, in order to make her productive. So I can't say grandma stuff won't work, right? Not on this kid, not on this employee, not on employees in general. And a lot of us are still resisting a bit, and we're saying, well, we shouldn't have to take on all that. And are we really taking on all that? Do we really want to take it on? Yeah, you're taking it on. It's called employee resource groups. That's what we call it now, right? And they're emerging in all companies. We have resource groups about LGBTQ connections, about wellness, about elder care, about parenting, about race and ethnicity. We are dealing with the issues of society from a leadership perspective, and it's being dealt with by the supervisor at my favorite Popeyes. It's being dealt with by the manager of finance at the company in which I work. It's being dealt with by CEOs. So we're going to have to embrace this newfound expectation about what we contribute and what we bring to the work environment. So with that backdrop, what does it mean to embrace the privilege of leading? Well, you have to ask yourself a question. So before in the past, as a manager, I got promoted because I did my projects well. I was nice to people, basically interacting with people, right? Didn't get into too much trouble, didn't have to write me up, came to work every day. So they go, okay, Ivy, we're gonna make you a manager. They never asked me the question, but you didn't need the question then, but you need this question now before you promote people. Am I motivated to accept responsibility for facilitating the coaching, the mentoring, and the development of people? Do I really want to do that? And you have to ask yourself that. Even if you've been managing for many years, you got to ask yourself that. Well, in the last 2 years, with the pressure on leadership, I've been asking myself, well, why haven't you retired now? Okay, you should have got out of here before COVID. That's what you should have done. You should have made your move then. You should run for the door then. But now I'm asking myself, are you up for this? Do you really want to do this? Do you want to accept the challenge of it? So you may be out there managing, but are you fulfilling the commitments and the responsibility that you have to the people that you've been charged with leading? Are you driven? So ask yourself, am I driven to fully understand, value, and optimize the responsibility to lead? Am I really driven to do that? So you don't have to answer that question. You can send me a note later. You don't have to answer the question in front of everybody. But you do have to honestly answer the question for yourself, right? Key, critical, will impact your effectiveness and your success. What am I really doing here, and do I really want to lead? Now, how do you put this all in a framework, right? If you put it in a framework, then it's actionable, and you can do something about it, and you can repeat it. It becomes a technology of sorts as you move through the cycles related to embracing the privilege of leading. How do I make adjustments along the way as people adjust or as the organization adjusts? There are three ways we're going to look at this. We're going to look at it relative to purpose. And this purpose isn't about the purpose of the organization. This purpose is about your purpose as a leader, and do you even have one, right? If you don't have one, let's develop one. The second component is about the people themselves. Who are they? What do they want from you? What are they asking for? What do you need to, what are you going to facilitate for them? And the third piece, critical piece, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit organization, is organizations have outcomes. There's a productivity dimension that's defined. There's an expectation about optimal performance and what it means to optimize performance. But in the realm of productivity, no matter what segment of the organization structure or business that you operate in, you're going to get ahead because of innovation and creativity. And where does innovation and creativity come from? Now I know I don't have to tell y'all that. Right, it comes from people. That's where it comes from. Right? So let's go around the wheel. Let's see what the privilege of leading is really all about. Let's start with you, with your purpose. Do you have a leadership purpose? Which is a statement about you, right? It's all about you. It's about the skills and the abilities and the attributes and the motives that you bring to the job and employ to optimize the performance of the people and to optimize the performance of the organization. Now, that purpose, of course, is not the same as the company's purpose around mission. It's not the same. It's just, this is highly personal, and it's all about you. Do you have the need to impact and influence other people? Do you want to tell other people what to do? Yeah, right? You're leaders. You want to tell other people what to do, right? It's a form of influence. So do you really want to influence other people? Do you want to take that on? Do you have the energy for that? Are you passionate about helping people achieve their purpose? Help the people around me achieve success and happiness as they define it. So now we have to add that. In management, when we're managing, success probably would have been it, and we'd have been okay with that. But now it's about happiness. I worked for a guy at Citi Trends. As a matter of fact, he took Citi Trends public, Ed. And Ed was a traditional mechanistic manager, right out of the Industrial Revolution. I think he actually worked at the Ford plant when they were making a Model A. Right, I think Ed worked there. And Ed would come into my office. I'd implemented some program. Ed said, you know, I don't have time for all this damn happiness. Good old Southern boy from Goldsboro, North Carolina, love him to death. He said he didn't have time for all this happiness, right? Well, we don't have time not to create happiness now. The world has changed. The world has absolutely changed. So think about where you are on this. But there's some characteristics now that you have to have that maybe you didn't have to have before. And let's think about these characteristics. Respect, humility, service, and gratitude. So it's changed. It's changed. We're trying to figure out how to keep happiness, how to have retention, how to have loyalty, and keep people in an environment where they feel cared for and cared about, and where they feel safe. That's what we're trying to do. And people, basically, what do people want? They want to work at a place where they're appreciated, and they want to work with people that they like. The respect, you may have earned the promotion by your deeds and your contribution to the organization. But you're going to have to earn the respect from the people. They're going to have to trust you, and they're going to have to believe in your authenticity as an individual and how much you really care about them. Humility, well, you got to get used to that. You have to leave your ego at the door. The employee wants to engage. Remember that little girl? That little girl wanted me to engage her, and I did, okay? And I did, right? So always remember when they're coming in there and they're trying to, they want to collaborate with you. Remember the speech Ivy made, and just say, little girl, you want to engage. Because that's what our employees want to do. They want to engage, so you got to check your ego at the door. We don't have all the answers. We can't have all the answers because the world moves too fast. The world moves too fast. We cannot have all the answers. It's impossible. The world, and we're just inundated with information. We're inundated with communications, right? We can't even keep up with our own emails. That's why when people call you and say, did you see my email? And you go, well, and they go, that's all right, I'll send it to you again so it's at the top of the pile. Isn't that what people say to you now? I'll send it to you again so it's at the top of the pile. It's like, nobody's reading all these damn emails. They're not. Well, you can't. Come on. You can't. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough time, because I would rather send you an email that says what than to get up out of my cube and go walk in your office and say what, right? So we don't do that anymore. We don't do that anymore. So you can't know everything. You're going to have to extend yourself through your people and through their capability. Service, you got to provide it. You got to put others first. You just have to put other people first. When you put other people first, the job is harder and it takes more time, because you're going to have to listen, and you're going to have to engage, and you're going to have a dialogue. It just takes more time. It is about providing a service. And then finally, gratitude, right? Gratitude's important. I've got to be thankful. If I'm really going to do this well, I have to be thankful for having been selected to lead other people. If I really do believe and embrace the sense of the privilege of leading. Secondly, I've got to respect my people, and I've got to thank them, and then they have to know and believe that I really do appreciate what they contribute to the organization, how hard they work, and what their sacrifices are. So respect and humility and service and gratitude becomes your mantra. Let's think about the impact that leaders can have. Here's the impact they can have. About 88% of people out there working say the organization doesn't really care about them, and there are varying degrees of that. There's a sense between the Aspen Institute and the Mayo Clinic that you and me as leaders have more of an impact on that employee's health than the family doctor. Imagine that. Imagine that and what that really means. That puts it into perspective in terms of how you impact and influence other people. We talk about the health crisis. Well, let's talk about the health crisis in the context of work. 74% of illnesses, you guys know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, are chronic. You know that. The biggest cause is stress. The biggest cause of stress is work. Biggest cause of stress is work. So if we think about that from a medical standpoint and from a physician standpoint, instead of doing EEOC charges, they need to charge us with malpractice. Right? That's what they need to charge us with. Monday morning. Why Monday morning? There's 7 days in the week. On Monday morning, there's a 20% increase in heart attacks. People are saying, oh, hell, I gotta go back in there. I gotta go in there. And when they say to their friends, I can't stand my boss, they mean it. And when they say she makes me sick, they mean it. They absolutely mean it. It is not a misnomer. They absolutely mean it. How can there be a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday morning? And you got to remember, we coined the phrase TGIF. What that mean? Thank God I don't have to go to work tomorrow. That's what it means. Right? It means thank God I ain't got to come in here tomorrow, right? That's exactly what that's exactly what it means, right? I'm sharing too much with you guys. I'm sharing my cartoon bubbles with you. Don't have to come in here tomorrow. So think about the impact that you have on leading other people, and this happens at all levels. Right? We're back to our circle. Let's talk about people. Is this clock right? This clock is just running faster than I can talk, but okay. Let me speed it up. Let's talk about people. We're responsible for the whole person now, not just the person that comes to work and has a degree in finance and knows how to close the books. It's got to go beyond that. We're responsible for a person's time and their efforts and their hopes and their dreams and their ambition. So much of who I am is tied up in what I do and where I spend the lion's share of my life. I spend the lion's share of my life at work, and what I do and who I am and my self-worth, a lot of that happens in the organization environment. And we're responsible for how we facilitate that. That's a lot. That's a lot of work, right? Changes it from the task. Task is no longer good enough. That's table stakes. You got to be able to manage tasks. You got to be able to delegate responsibility. You got to be able to do all that, and you got to be good at it. That's table stakes just to get in the game. Now it's all about the development of the whole person and how you do that. And it's a person that's not conforming. Right? At one time in organizations, conformity was an expectation. You came in, you learned the rules, you dressed the part. Anybody remember Dress for Success? And if you raise your hand, you're really going to date yourself, right? Yeah, Dress for Success. We all wore those little suits and nylons, and we were just so really cool, right? That was the Bible. Dress for Success. You became the company person doing what the company asked you to do, and you followed the company rules, right? And the company model. And you had these very clearly defined linear careers, and everybody went up the corporate ladder. Well, now people are looking for individuality. That's what they talk about. They talk most about individuality. Now, the good news is it leads to innovation and creativity. The challenge is it's hard to manage. People want to be themselves, right? And that's not a new idea. They want to celebrate their uniquenesses. And so anything that sounds like this, and when we struggle in management, we institutionalize it and we call it DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? That's how we begin to deal with that. We institutionalize it in a way so we can operationalize it. They want to do the job their way, all right? So that's non-conforming. That's different than what we've been accustomed to, different than I was taught in management. I was taught in discipline and execution, and these people are saying, I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to do it my way, but I'll maintain the company standards, each individual to their own. So we're going to have to recognize that. So managing a team is a bit like herding cats. Right? It's a bit like herding cats. It's more difficult. It's hard. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? And how do I continue to motivate you? Your job is to nurture the talent in the company. So let me speak from the CEO's perspective now. I want the leaders in this company nurturing talent because of the challenges that organizations and businesses face today. Who has runway? You got to know people. I expect you to know your people and to know your people intimately. Who's got runway to do some other things, to take a different career track, to contribute in other ways in the organization? Who has the next big idea? That's what you need from people. Who has the next big idea in your group and in your team? Now, the outcome and the results of the team, and we all know that, is going to be the leadership, the effectiveness of the team, the effectiveness of the leader, and you can measure that based on the team results. But you're there to nurture people. You're there to help people come up and develop those next big ideas, and you're there to determine who has runway to lead the organization going forward. Finally, productivity. And these are the outcomes. So we're still responsible for outcomes. So we've got to do all of this, all of these things in terms of our purpose and in terms of how we interact with people to support the privilege of leading. But we also, part of that privilege is we also have to produce for the organization. We also have to optimize performance. We also have to have productivity in the organization. And what does that productivity mean? It means generating ideas. And that's going to come from people. That's going to come from that individuality part versus the conformity part. That's where it's going to come from. The part that's hard and difficult to manage is going to reap the greatest benefits. Generating an idea, think about it. Generating an idea is an invention, right? If you can operationalize it, right? Let's break it down to its simplest terms. I'm going to tell you a story about Jonathan. This is another Jonathan, not my son Jonathan, another Jonathan. I run a layaway call center. That layaway call center operates for about 5 weeks, from right after Thanksgiving until right up until Christmas Day. $15 million, 93,000 layaways. I got to call people and remind them, because if I don't call you to remind you to make your layaway payments, I decrease the probability that you're going to pick up that layaway on the 24th, and then on the 26th, if you don't, I'm going to be stuck with a bunch of layaways in my back room. So I run a temporary layaway call center. Gave that call center, hired Jonathan for that call center. Jonathan, temporary worker, young, African-American male, single parent, has a 2-year-old, right? That's part of engage. You got to understand where Jonathan is. After the second day, the third day of work, Jonathan called. Jonathan said, I can't come to work. And we're like, well, Jonathan, why can't you come to work, right? This is like a 5-week program. We need you coming to work, Jonathan. We need you here. Why can't you come to work, Jonathan? Well, this is all about the whole person, right? Well, I can't come to work because, I can't come to work because I don't have gas money. I don't have gas money. Well, Jonathan, can you borrow money from somebody? Where's Uncle Leroy? Can you get money from him? Can you borrow money? Yes, I think I can get it. You borrow the money, you get here, you come to work, and I will give you the money back. And we'll give you the money that you need to do what? To continue to come to work until you get paid and you can pay for your gas. Now, that's one of the best decisions I ever made. You know why? Because here's what happened with my layaway call center. My layaway call center, the percentage of conversions was the highest it had been the highest we'd ever achieved. And guess where the idea came from that led to that? A couple of days later, it came from Jonathan. Because here's what Jonathan said. Jonathan says, when we call people and their phone is dead, we push a button and we take them off the list because we figure we'll never be able to get a hold of them again. And Jonathan said, my conversion rates are high, Ivy, because I don't do that. I go, well, why don't you do that, Jonathan? He said, because it's cricket. And I was like, what the hell is cricket? Jonathan says, it's cricket. I said, what cricket got to do with my layaways? He said, they're just out of minutes, Ivy, for a minute. I was like, oh, okay, they're out of minutes for a minute. Jonathan said, they're just out of minutes. That phone's going to come right back on. And when it comes on, I call them. I just wait a day or two, put a little mark in my computer, and I call them back. They didn't go anywhere. They just ran out of minutes. And I said, Jonathan, we need to have a meeting with the rest of the team, and I need you to talk about minutes and what that really means. and what that really means. I would have never figured that out. Okay, guys, I'm gonna run about 5 minutes, all right? So I see this clock is intimidating me. I would have never, but I had to tell the Jonathan story. I would have never figured it out for Jonathan. Classic, right? So ideas, innovation, creativity, that comes from people. Productivity, one thing I want to leave you with, so I got to rush this last piece of it. What you do with your people, how you get them to perform, the more that they can generate ideas on their own, the more that you can manufacture time. For leaders, you have to change your definition of productivity. Your definition of productivity is, how do I manufacture time? And the way you manufacture time is develop your people, inspire them, motivate them, let them generate ideas, and let their creativity run, so that you can ask yourself, now, looking at my team, what am I not going to do 6 months from now that they're going to do? And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be looking at other ventures, other opportunities, other ways to create value for the company. So if the single thing that you take away from here is manufacture time. You know this. We'll close with this. You interpret the vision and the vision and the mission of the company. That's extraordinarily important. People need to, you'll be surprised how many people don't sit in a cube all day long and have no idea how the company makes money. Has no idea how the company makes money, how the company adds value, doesn't even have a clue. What the company's true output is to society, has no understanding of that. If there's another takeaway, sit people down and help them understand how the company performs and how it adds value. And keep in mind, when you're looking at these people, it's important for them to know they're the new capital. What do I need most? Do I need money or do I need talent? What do I need most, right? It's the chicken or the egg, isn't it? But talent is truly the new capital. The basis upon which organizations are going to compete is people, right? People before business. Strategies don't compete, people compete. People develop the strategies that you employ, right? What's critical is, who do you have in charge of those people? Who do you have leading those people? Who are we? Who are we really, and what are we really willing to contribute? And let's promote creativity and incentivize people to just use their minds and become all that they can be. It's turbulent times. It's a difficult world. We're inundated with technology. Things are changing at an unprecedented, rapid pace. And the only people that you can't, well, so far, here's what we can be happy about. They haven't digitized us. Thank you.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being.
So Ivy, thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes left for questions prior to beginning our reception. So does anybody have a question they'd like to ask Ivy? That was extraordinary.
One quick one.
We got a lady back at the mic, so I want to cut you off. Go ahead. Is it on?
It's on. Hi, Ms. Council. Thank you so much for all of that content that you gave us. I've been in HR for a very long time, in retail management, about 20 years now.
Okay.
I was speaking with Mr. Rebo, I think I said it right, Mr. Alfonso, about talent. Everybody is hiring, but we do want to hire internally as well and promote internally and keep our talent that we have there. But one of the things that we have going on is that we are trying to be more diverse and not just DEI washing with it. But we're having a very hard time with like bilingual or multinational talent, and where we need that because a lot of our customers, are bilingual. So the conversation that we were having is that there probably won't be able to solve that simply because if they have to come somewhere, especially in rural areas, I work in Brunswick, there's no housing or they can't afford the housing. So how do we meet in the middle? So I was thinking about emailing my CEO and asking him, are the companies, talking about that at the top, about how we can get that talent in where there are some incentives where they can afford, or not just our talent, but where we can afford to give them some type of incentive to come to more rural areas, or where they can find a work-life balance where they don't have to leave as soon as they come because they can't afford to live there. Did I make that clear? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you made that clear. Here's what it made. I don't know that I have an answer, but I do have a thought. And the thought is this. During the last industrial revolution at the turn of the last century, what did companies do for workers? See, we've kind of gotten stupid over time, but what did companies do for workers? They build housing, right? They subsidized housing. They took care, there's a company, remember there used to be a company doctor and nurse at work and all those things? They invested in, now for us today, that means we got to invest in talent. For your CEO, it is a question of where you're going to invest. How much are you willing to invest? And what's the cost of not investing in that talent? Maybe there's this housing subsidy. I don't know, but if you've got a talent gap, you have to close the talent gap. You don't really have much choice. You don't really have much choice. If my distribution center shuts down the pack sorter, the pack sorter packs all the boxes that ship it to over 600 stores. Guess what I'm gonna do with that pack sorter? I'm gonna fix it because I have no other choice. That's where we are with people and talent and what they contribute. Now, can you keep people? Hard to keep people today. It's hard, they have other priorities. Keep them as long as you can, but get really good and really skilled at accelerating the time it takes to bring others up to speed. That's what you gotta master. Right? It's a different environment.
Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Actually, that was a perfect lead into mine. So one of the things that people are having a hard time getting a hold of is what does it cost to replace somebody versus to promote them, invest in them internally? And I've heard it's 1.5 times their salary.
It depends on the level, right? It depends on the level. It depends on on the person. It depends on how you've structured your staffing organization, right? It depends, and it depends on how you've structured your staff itself, right? If you've done enough, if people can do more than one thing, you're good, even in an administrative department, even in a human resources department, right? I'll grab you, you walk by me and I need something done, I go, come here, you know how to do this? No, I don't know how to do that. Well, come here, I'm gonna show you how to do this. You'll be doing it tomorrow, right? You've gotta be willing to stretch, right? And give people more to do. Remember we talked about those linear careers. Those linear careers are over. People can do all sorts of things that we didn't think they can do. One person can't stop the show. That's where we are now. One person can't stop the show. You are gonna lose people. You gotta be resilient. You have to be resilient. At the lowest levels in my organization, at the frontline levels in my organization, it's difficult, right? It's really difficult. When you lose somebody there, you lose productivity. I have stock in the back room. When I lose that stock person who just does it in their sleep and knows how to do it and comes in at 3 and leaves at 4, or comes in at 2 and leaves at 4 and it's all done for that day's shipment, when I lose that person, it hurts. So it's a job in particular, right? So gross generalizations don't work anymore. Specificity does in terms of targeted key jobs in the area. The stock person, key job for me because it's a revenue generating job because I can't sell it if it's in the back room. That job in every store is more important to me than the DM, because DM's not getting stock out. So it depends, but one way to combat it, identify your revenue generating jobs, your most impactful jobs. Those are the jobs you can't afford to have empty. Those are the jobs where you need backup and you need development. Okay?
Thank you very much. Ivy,
Thank you.
So what an incredible morning. Thank you all for your attendance. We are now adjourning till 11:50. Up there we have heavy hors d'oeuvres. We are coming back in here at 11:50 to award 3 extraordinary people with leadership awards. And before we adjourn, briefly, let me just say one more thank you to all of our sponsors, our platinum sponsors, which are the Georgia Ports Authority, Gulfstream Aerospace, Georgia Southern University, and Georgia Power. So thank you for being here. Please go enjoy some hors d'oeuvres, and we'll be back in here at 11:50.